Hi, I'm Justin Siegel, a professor of chemistry, biochemistry, and molecular medicine at the University of California, Davis. I am also the principal investigator of the US-based Center of Excellence for the Periodic Table of Food Initiative. In this lesson, we're here to talk about proteins. Next to water, proteins may be the most important class of nutrients for our health. But did you know that proteins are also notable for their immense impact on the health of the planet? You've probably heard countless recommendations about which proteins to eat for both human and planetary health. However, before diving into that, it's critical to step back and understand what proteins actually are. To understand proteins, we need to start with the central dogma of biology. DNA is transcribed into RNA, which is then translated into a protein. Therefore, while DNA is the code of life, proteins are the translation of that code into action. Proteins are responsible for most of the structures and functions that keep life on Earth running. They transform chemicals like ribisco, which converts CO2 into sugars to help plants grow. They form structural elements like collagen, which provides critical support for your muscles, bones, and skin. Proteins also catch and recognize other molecules, such as antibodies, which catch foreign agents and help your immune system fight off pathogens. They even store nutrients, like the glutens in grains that provide energy for growing plants. The list of what proteins do is virtually endless. And when I say endless, I mean it. There are about 20 naturally occurring amino acids, and the average protein consists of around 400 of these amino acids strung together. Imagine pearls on a string. The number of possible sequences is mind-boggling. 20 multiplied by itself 400 times. That's around 10 to the 500 possible sequences, which is a number so large it makes the number of stars in the observable universe, 10 to the 24th, look tiny by comparison. And here's the thing, every one of those sequences matters. A single change in a single amino acid can cause cancer, can make cilantro taste like soap, or make you more susceptible to COVID. But not all changes are bad. In fact, over the past 50 years, we've learned how to harness the power of proteins to improve human and planetary health. Almost every human on Earth benefits from proteins we've designed and produced. For example, have you ever wondered why laundry detergent removes stains so much better than hand soap? It's because it contains added proteins that break up the toughest stains. Or why store-bought bread stays soft longer than artisanal bread? Well, we add proteins that modify the structure of the bread to retain moisture. And the reason we need a flu shot every year, it's because the flu virus constantly changes the proteins on its surface, requiring new antibodies to recognize it and present it to your immune system. Like I said, practically every biological function on this planet is driven by proteins. All right, now let's get back to the proteins you eat. Given what we've discussed, it's no surprise that there's confusion around dietary proteins. For years, we've treated proteins as a black box. But now that you understand a bit about what proteins are, let's unbox this complexity with a thought experiment. Imagine I came to you and said, hey, I've got this product with a ton of great vitamins. One of the first questions you'd probably ask is, which vitamins? You'd ask this because you know different vitamins have different functions. If you already drink orange juice every morning, you likely might not need any more vitamin C. But if you're vegan and it contains B12, you might be very interested. While you may not have realized it, these decisions are because of an implicit understanding you've learned about the molecular composition of vitamins and the roles they play in your health. This allows you to make informed decisions based on your needs. All right, now imagine I came to you and said, hey, I've got this great product with a ton of great protein. One of the questions you may ask is, how much? And then, what's the protein source? But really, the better question is, which proteins? Remember, proteins perform almost every biological function on Earth. Any source of protein, whether plant-based or animal-based, contains thousands of unique protein molecules with different sequences and different impacts on your health. Yet even today, we know very little about the specific protein molecular composition in the foods we eat. That implicit understanding you have about vitamins has not been developed yet for the molecular composition of proteins and the roles they play in your health. Just as different vitamins serve different functions, the same is true for proteins. Based on your genetics, environment, age, and health goals, the specific proteins you need will vary. You can see why our limited knowledge about the molecular composition of protein in food and their impacts on health lead to confusion. Let me give you a real-world example of why understanding the molecular composition of proteins and their functions is so important. Earlier, I mentioned gluten, the proteins found in grains that store nutrients for growing plants. For most people, gluten is a harmless part of their diet, potentially even beneficial. However, for individuals with celiac disease, consuming gluten can cause serious health issues, including abdominal pain, fatigue, nutrient deficiencies, and more. Celiac disease affects about 1% of the world's population. At the University of Washington and the University of California, Davis, my colleagues and I pioneered a project focused on celiac disease. By understanding the specific molecular structures within gluten proteins that trigger this disease, we were able to develop an enzyme therapeutic that degrades those harmful fragments. This technology has the potential to prevent celiac patients from suffering the devastating symptoms when they're exposed to gluten. It's a prime example of how understanding protein structure at the molecular level within common foods enables human health solutions. Inspired by our work on celiac disease, my lab at UC Davis has also developed technology to improve the quality of plant proteins. Many plant proteins are resistant to digestion and contain protease inhibitors, the combination of which decrease bioavailability of plant proteins, making them lower quality than animal proteins. Our community developed cutting-edge tools, recognized by the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 2024, that enabled us to discover enzymes capable of digesting the protein molecules in plants that are typically resistant to digestion, which results in increasing the health benefits of plant proteins. This is particularly important as we strive to diversify the range of protein sources we use to include sustainable, low-cost options like plants, insects, algae, and fungi. Using these tools, we can maximize the nutritional efficacy of all the foods we eat without having to decide between what's best for our health versus the planet's health. The technologies we are developing can increase the nutritional benefit of a wide variety of protein sources, potentially reducing overall protein demand and expanding the spectrum of nutritious proteins consumed. By enhancing the bioavailability of protein-rich foods, we can help meet the nutritional needs of a rapidly expanding global population while reducing the environmental impact associated with protein production. And this is just the beginning. Thanks to incredible technological advances over the past 30 years, we are now able to decipher the protein composition of the foods we love. PTFI has decoded the molecular composition of proteins in 500 commonly consumed foods from around 250 species, quantifying more than 420,000 unique proteins. Knowing the structure of each unique protein allows us to predict the roles they play in your health. These predictions can then be confirmed through targeted clinical and biological assays. This will enable us to make more informed decisions about the food we love, ensuring we can produce them in a sustainable manner and maximize their health benefits. For example, there is a need to identify plant-based foods that have similar protein bioavailability to animal-based foods, like we just discussed. Our group at UC Davis is applying AI to analyze proteomics data from the PTFI's first 500 foods to identify plant-based foods that have the closest molecular structure to commonly consumed animal-based foods. And we've been finding some surprising results. Did you know that many of the types of protein structures in beef can also be found in parsnips? Or that the types of proteins in egg yolks are very similar to brown lentils? Another exciting preliminary finding in our efforts is that not everyone responds the same way to the proteins they eat. This highlights that we need to not only acknowledge the diversity of food composition that varies across the food system, but we also need to acknowledge how different populations may respond differently to specific foods, whether based on cultural preferences or epigenetics. And what if we integrate this proteomics data with other foodomics data to holistically examine food quality? This would enable us to not only expand our knowledge beyond the nutrition label with regards to total protein and amino acid composition, but take into account interactions between the tens of thousands of biomolecules that are present in the food that determine food quality and ultimately impact your health. As you can see, by understanding the molecular composition of proteins in food, we can make precise recommendations and formulations that create more nutritious and sustainable foods. This knowledge will amplify the impact of the global strategies and diverse solutions needed to achieve environmental targets set by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Thus, understanding the molecular compositions of our food isn't just a scientific endeavor. It's a catalyst for better choices, groundbreaking technologies, and innovative products that can transform our food systems from the environment to our diets. By unlocking the mysteries of proteins, we have the power to make the foods we love healthier and more sustainable for all people and the planet. The protein revolution opens the door to a future where nutrition and sustainability go hand in hand, benefiting both our personal health journeys and the well-being of our global community. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the incredible world of proteins.